Welcome to this session of the Latchel Property Management Podcast. I'm Ethan Lieber, the CEO of Latchel, here with our guest today, Thad Tarkington, CEO of Second Nature. And I'm super excited to have you on, Thad. Second Nature is sort of like this big staple in the management space now. I see you at every single family management conference. You guys are prolific in this space, so I'm excited to talk to you and learn about what you're doing. We're going to focus today on Second Nature's bread and butter, which is fresh air. I'm on the West Coast. We've been really needing fresh air here, and your filters may not solve that problem, but we're going to dig into that. And we're going to talk about Second Nature's subscription-based air filter delivery service, which is a huge help for property managers. Does a few things, and we'll dig into these more in a sec here. First, it steps up your preventative maintenance property operations, which is good for increasing NOI of properties, right?
Yep.
You also add new monthly revenues for property managers, and we'll get into like resident benefit packages and how those work. And then, of course, you can save money on the heating and cooling costs and you know, the utilities of the property. So we'll get into all these things. But first off, welcome to the show, Thad.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here, and appreciate all the kind words you said about us. So, good to hear we're making a positive impression on folks. But no, excited for the conversation today. So.
Well, I think you've made a positive impression for sure on all the property managers that are probably listening. I'm sure many of them are already linked up with Second Nature, and for those that aren't, we're going to have a lot of learning opportunity here. But even for those that already are, I'm sure there's a lot of learning potential. But for those that don't know what Second Nature is, maybe you can start by giving us kind of like your elevator pitch on your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Second Nature, the service we offer, it's a subscription service for air filters. We deliver the exact filters that a property needs and the correct cadence for their market. And by doing that, plus the other things that we kind of the way we position it, we ensure that residents are changing their filters on time. So, if you look at, the current state before we kind of brought this product to market, it was an item that was required by the resident to do. It was out of sight, out of mind. They didn't think about it. And the negative effects of that were, not only were they paying higher energy bills and had poor air quality, but there is a lot of damage to systems, which, a lot of downstream effects, everything from more maintenance calls means upset tenants, more expenses. And so ultimately we said, a phrase I love is big doors swing on small hinges. And so the idea was like something so simple as changing an air filter, whether it be every month or every quarter, depending on your market, pays for itself in energy savings, big savings on HVAC. And so ultimately, we've come up with, all things considered in terms of, economics, how do you actually implement, get it done, the best way to get residents to change their filters. And so, by deploying our service, we're seeing most folks say, once implementing, nearly every property is changing on time. And, later, if you want to get into it, we have some cool stats and things. And so, in addition to that, we also design and deploy resident benefit packages and really help people with that whole process of like, how do you set it up? And then obviously, where we make money is on the filters, and that's, a high attach rate. But that's really kind of what we do in the property management market.
Awesome. Maybe we can give us like maybe a specific example. So property manager, let's say like 100 single family homes they're managing. You get into a meeting with them. And they're like, okay, so like, what does this really do for me? Like, first off, maybe we can talk about how long does it actually take me to even like do this? Is this like I have to plan things out for a year? And how does that work? And then what do they get? Let's just use the basic 100 units, benchmark. That's my company.
Yeah,
why should I work
that? And I think that's a helpful way to think about it. Give something kind of concrete to work off of. So let's say you have 100 units. Essentially the way our service works at a high level is first we're going to decide in your market what's the appropriate frequency, and then how do we want to bring this to market. And so
so that would be like based on the area, you're going to say, we should be sending filters every 2 months or every 3 months or 6 months or whatever it would be.
Yeah. So essentially, how often you want to change your filter, really just depends on how dirty it gets. But the biggest drivers of that are going to be, the climate, what's in the air, what's in the home, and then how hard do you have to run that system. So look at a market like, Florida, they're running HVAC year round. You probably need to change that filter every month, every other month. And then some markets get a little funny. California, certain areas, twice a year is good. Other areas you need every month. It just depends. Desert, what's the climate, dusty or not. But absolutely. That's the first step is, just understanding, once, obviously in a conversation, we'd walk through the benefits and what you get from it, which are reduced HVAC and things like that. But in terms of just answering your question on implementation, essentially we identify, what's the right frequency for you. And then we have, what's the fair market value in terms of, our product plus some other things that we'd roll into a resident benefit package. How should you position it on the market? And then, the good news in terms of, our product is we're actually able to deliver, at the same price, a resident would pay in the market. So, they're paying a fair price because the volume is a discount, and they can actually, depending on volume and stuff, make a spread as well. And so not only can they bring a service to residents that, is actually cash neutral, the EPA data shows by changing your filters regularly, you reduce your energy use 5 to 15%. And given, especially for folks in single family, that actually breaks down to a little over, $100 a year in energy savings. So obviously depends on frequencies, some other factors, but, roughly pays for itself. And then on the property manager's end, it can bring some income. And then the beautiful part, if we look at the third player in the equation, the investor or the landlord, is, they're spending a couple $100s in HVAC a year. And we actually, did a study with 3 different partners, 6,000 units, and found that, using our service, and this wasn't, year over year, this was in real time, side by side, properties on and off to account for weather and other things that may affect HVAC. We found there was a net 38% reduction in HVAC work order tickets by getting filters changes. And so that's where we say, it's one of the huge where, and you obviously, you're in this business, and I know we'll talk about this later, but, the data of HVAC, it's very seasonal. When you get to those summer months, you can go through 40, 50% of your work orders in like 2 months in the summer. And that's also your busiest leasing season. So we found, not only does it reduce that, something that, that you're well aware of, maintenance is one of the number one reasons, poor maintenance handling is one of the number one reasons people don't renew. And so, smoothing that out, it's less, HVAC, when it's burning, you've got kids, that's not a fun call on either end. The tenant's happier, your employees are happier, and your investors are saving money. And so ultimately, that's kind of the why you would do it. And in terms of implementation, that's where, our team works closely with. You just say, all right, once we figure out the fair market value, how we're rolling this out, what's included, it's more of a rolling start. So pick a start date. Awesome. And rather than make this a big project, we realize, look, we know property managers are busy. Their life is fighting fires. So rather than say, this isn't some big software implementation or something where it's like all hands on deck, moving data. It's, hey, let's start. It's a marathon versus sprint approach. Let's just, as properties turn over, at least renewal, we just roll them on. So the nice thing, it's something that, I think you had asked, like, how long does it take, things like that? Ultimately, it may take, a few weeks, a month, realistically, just some conversations back and forth to nail down what you want to do. But once you nail down what you want to do in terms of implementing, we're kind of there side by side the whole way and make it a smooth and easy process to roll out. So, actually, with that, it does mean it can take, a year to more, depending on, how long term your leases, but it's smooth and easy, and then you're up and running from there. So.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a really lightweight implementation. We have I talk about this all the time, like the leadership principles or culture principles we use. A lot of these pulled from Amazon. One of them is bias for action, though. And the implementation, that lightweight, gives you the opportunity for bias for action. You can, boom, spin this up. You don't have to go through whatever a 60-day or 90-day period to blast it out everywhere and deal with the hassle. You can roll it out quick without thinking about it too much. That's really awesome. And then when I think about just some of the things I'm thinking through that you were talking through, and let me know if I'm wrong here. Yeah. It sounds like there's sort of like this punch list or we'll call it a bullet list of benefits on all sides. So for the tenant, what I'm hearing, and maybe you could even advertise these in listings almost because they're so valuable.
Yeah.
The cost savings on utilities, that alone sounds like a huge value add. And I don't know if do you provide snippets or something for marketing that to a tenant? Because that would be kind of hard to calculate, but.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say one thing, obviously, by market, depending if it's pure single family, light multifamily, it's going to vary. But, that's part of what we do is we help work with you and your leasing team and stuff like, hey, what's the best way to present this value? And, specifically talking about, what is a tenant going to gain here? And so, what's the benefits to them? And, if you look at really the two things that matter to them is the air quality and the energy savings. Because, at the end of the day, the HVAC, I would argue it matters. I think in real time, though, they're thinking, oh, it's not going to break. That's not a me. But when that goes out for a week, it matters, right? But if we kind of take that out and say, what are the primary benefits? Well, you're going to breathe better air quality. And so, one, the EPA states, indoor air, all the studies have shown it's 2 to 5 times worse than outdoor air. And your HVAC really kind of operates as those lungs of your home. It's constantly circulating air. And so, having an effective filter in there that's clean, not only is it going to capture particles and give you better air, but something else that people often don't think about is it makes your system more efficient. So you wake up and you're a little cold and let's say you bump it up 3 degrees, it's actually going to reach that desired temperature quicker with an efficient filter. And because it's more efficient, that's where your energy bill goes down. And, energy use will vary very widely. If you have 4 kids and you're, especially right now, everyone's working from home, energy use is higher, HVACs are running harder, but, it'll vary. But, on average, that's where, it actually pays for itself. And, the good thing is, knowing that, people, why don't they change a filter? Let's just out of sight, out of mind. They don't think about it. People get the benefits, they just don't do it. And so by kind of putting this right on your door, it acts as a physical reminder. You don't forget to do it. And the nice thing, in a cost neutral way, you get the benefits of air quality, which, I wouldn't put a specific dollar amount. If you look at the lifts and asthma and other things like that, we're seeing, and, the more and more we build our homes, we're building them like plastic bags, and that like weather stripping, insulation, building materials for, whether it's windows or, the exterior, we're all trying to trap that air. And it's kind of, why? It's like, well, energy use is so high. So what do? Let's trap the air, keep it more efficient. Well, the negative effect is, what do we also trap? All the furniture we're buying that's off gas, all these, products we're bringing to our home, which, make life great. If you look at living standards, I don't think anyone will argue to live in 1500, but, they also, can bring those harmful particles. So like, that's where we look at like, again, it's a simple thing, takes 30 seconds. You do it, maybe every 1 or 3 months, but can have a big impact. So, but yeah, that's definitely kind of, and we help package that and kind of organize that so you can show that to the renter. That's also part of the reason you get, the high compliance is because people get the why. People don't understand why, they're much less likely, as to do something. And so that's an important piece of the puzzle.
And if anyone doubts, they can do a quick YouTube search and see hundreds of residents, with their filters, with a big smile on their faces. Yep. I think the awesome part about this is like, there's sort of this hidden level of benefit to the property manager that you don't see as an explicit outcome right off the bat, but you see it later. And you kind of mentioned this. One of them is going to be resident retention, because if you can reduce the amount of these emergency maintenance issues that are coming through, most of which you said are seasonal for the HVAC system, you eliminate, it's sort of like a risk mitigation. You've eliminated that opportunity to really make a resident mad because, I just moved in, my AC system is out, I'm all pissed off now, I'm not going to renew. You eliminate that kind of danger point. You also save money on the operation because now your team, or if Latchel is the one handling the coordination, it's good for Latchel too. We're not now dealing with hundreds of HVAC calls because you weren't keeping, doing the preventative maintenance. So you have that retention benefit, you have the service benefit, and that feeds into more positive online reviews, which then feed into your ability to actually grow your business. So there's like these positive flywheels you get by implementing something, right?
Yeah, and something, that you mentioned on the retention, not only is like, how you handle the maintenance, like the actual quality of the work, but just, the time. And I know, this is where your business, adds a ton of value to this equation. Just like the speed of responding and, really being really communicative helps. And, if you think about, HVAC specifically, obviously it's, one of the largest kind of maintenance items, but it's also one of the toughest to deal with. One of the most pain points when it's gone wrong, besides something, catastrophic like, flooding or something like that. And so, but, if you look at, renewals, something that, a lot of people don't think about is they know most of them are happening right in those, in the summer months, right before school season starts. People move in the summer, weather and other things play into that. And so, you have a bad HVAC incident, a month before you're moving, and you're already on the fence about, where you want to stay. Do you stay in this house? That plus, not having either 24/7 maintenance or, a good system to get in touch with people. Layer those things all together, that could be the thing that pushes people over the edge. And look, if we're saying, renewal rates, somewhere in the 2/3 range, kind of mid 60s, if you can bump that up, even 1-2%, does that get your occupancy rate from 95 to 96, 97, right? And so, those may not sound like big numbers to some people. I know others are like, yeah, those are huge. But, when you run that math, very big impact for your owners, your business over time. Just not having to do those turns and things like that. So, it's funny how, like, when you really start to peel back the onion, in life in general, but, in some of these things, how, they really start to compound. Like you said, there's this flywheel effect.
Yeah. I want to get to your background, but before I do, I actually think this is a good segue for us to talk about resident benefit packages. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. And the reason I want to jump to the benefit packages, we've talked about, these are things the resident pays for. You help companies package second nature, and you've mentioned a couple other things that you help them pack into a benefit, which the resident pays for, which allows then the property manager to actually create higher revenue per door. So you're actually like the kind of an engine for improving their business alongside the actual specific service you're providing. We've talked about resident retention, and I think the big question, and I have my own thoughts on this too, but I think the big question our listeners are now thinking is, well, if I'm now charging my residents, and let's just say we're doing a $30 benefit package. If I'm now charging them $30, won't that outweigh all the benefit on the retention? Because if I know, well, now I'm paying this $30 for this stuff, why would I rent this place, or why would I stay here? Like, I'm just going to leave. Like, what I'm actually getting doesn't matter. That $30 is way more impactful to me as the tenant. I'm curious, like, I'll share my thoughts on this too, but I'd like to pass it to you first. I'm curious, like, how do you, what do you say to property managers that are thinking, like, really, like, I'm going to charge my resident $30? They're not going to renew.
Yeah. So I'll start and I'll share a story. And, I'm sure a lot of people can, share this experience, which is, going through college, I rented a variety of houses. And at the end of the day, for that time in life, it worked well for me. But, I think back to some of the things that happened then. If I was renting today, that wouldn't really fly well. And part of it is, like, when you rent from someone off Craigslist, an accidental landlord, what do you get? You basically get a house and keys and hopefully a lease, And so, things like, I had an HVAC go out one time, and, absolutely love the landlord. Great guy. Would love to grab a drink with him, whatever it may be. But, sometimes, if he's on vacation, it might take a week to respond, right? There is no contact. You don't have a maintenance line. Just things that, like, when you're renting, you don't think about. You just optimistically everything's going to go well. Yeah. And even other stuff like, when you moved in, it's like, hey, one of these rooms, there was a bunch of stuff left. Well, what do you do with it? And so as I think through, like, just that whole experience of renting, there's times where, something goes wrong, there's a leak, and it's like, for 2 days, you're like blowing them up, you're texting them, no response. It's like, those are things you start to deal with. We had to sleep with fans on us and wet towels for 3 weeks because we couldn't, I think in that case, they lived in a couple states away, and like, oh yeah, I'll come down and do it. And it's just like, and so, like, just simple things like vetted vendors, right? Like, people, a lot of times when you're doing something day in, day out, you forget the impact it has. And so, one thing I tell a property manager is, like, look at what your product is versus, the accidental landlord or, a professional manager. It's like things like, hey, and look, people love to give the exception, which is the 1 or 2% of, squeaky bad actor wheels. But, if you look at the norm, people want a good lease. People want a mutual lease and an understanding. They want a good legal agreement. They want 24/7. They want someone who picks up the phone and, call, email, whatever. Obviously, we could talk all day about how everything's going digital, and I believe that should be first. But whatever your method of communication, people want that. And, simple things like, when I have an HVAC, do I want the best company in town to come fix it one time, get it right? Because especially if I'm scheduled to be home, or do I want, my buddy, my landlord's buddy's friend who's going to come in and spend 3 hours and start asking me questions? Yeah,
Right.
but like, and, we laugh because it's funny, but like that's the difference in the product. And so I'd say, if you're asking that question, we're not even on the right plan, right? It's if someone's worried about $30, or $40, that's not really a valid question, because it's like, well, what experience are they going to have? Is someone much more likely to renew a property that's really good living experience, everything's gone well? That's not really going to be a question they're asking. So that's where I'd start. And part of the value that I would say we're trying to bring to the industry is that look at markets like Australia, right? And I know a lot of it's regulatory, but there's really two macro trends we're seeing, which is one, over time, you've got right now about a third are professionally managed. And so for a lot of people listening, if we, and 70% are accidental, if you flip that number, that would mean almost a little over 2x growth for everyone in the market, right? So that gets people excited. Well, what's going to help people get there? Well, two macro trends we're seeing is as we go naturally, and this varies. You've seen over periods of history this change, but naturally, like, there's a high probability we'll add more and more legislation, which more should be good. Some people will complain here or there, but if you look at it, should be good, because it means it's more complicated. I probably need a professional. And number two, we've seen this trend where 300-400 years ago, people built their own houses, killed their own food, grow their own food, like they did it all themselves. And now it's like no one can build a house because, like, well, it's so complicated, right? We've gotten, with all this innovation complication, we're really in this phase where people are becoming more experts, and then they outsource other things and they're looking for convenience. And so as we get there, just the general desire of folks to actually manage their own home, there's a belief that will start to transfer. And so those two things combined, I think we'll see a big shift to a landlord. So, like, what's something important that folks can get right today, and I think helps with all these legislative and other issues? And it's like, it's really, what's the value bring doing a good job? And if I'm a property manager, I don't want accidental landlords. I don't want people giving a bad image, because they're the ones that get written up in the Wall Street Journal, or these are the ones that get on these news pages of, like, bad landlord. It's like, that does happen, right? But that's not what we want. There's a good experience, and it takes time, it takes investment, it takes critical thinking, and really delivering good products to market. And so that's the argument I make, is what's good for the industry. It's doing all the right things, and sometimes they're not free, to bring good products and service to market. But the net effect is better experience, better retention, in a growing industry. And so that's kind of what I would tell folks is, looking 20, 30 years out, what do we believe will be the case? And what are things that we need to do to differentiate? And so I think, going back to your simple question of the resident benefit packages, these are all things that they add significantly more value than the cost. Specifically, even, just talking about, our core product and, how we generate revenue, it pays for itself, right? And, accidental landlords, they're not bringing solutions like this to a resident.
Yeah.
Those aren't getting changed. It's hurting the landlord and it's hurting the tenant. And so that's kind of what I would say is, like, look at really the bigger picture and kind of step out of the weeds for a minute. And I think it becomes very clear for a lot of folks. So,
yeah, I think the thing that you're getting, you're kind of nailing with the explanation is the residents actually want to pay more for better service.
Yes.
They wish they could give you more money for that better experience. I was talking to Joe Easton from Rent Manager yesterday, and I gave this example. I actually gave this for the first time at I think Cal NARPM, like beginning of this year, before COVID, before before the new normal. This was the old normal, and I gave him the example of Starbucks versus McDonald's. And whenever I do this to a group, I ask everyone, raise your hand if you think Starbucks is better. Of course, like, my hand shoots up. Do you drink coffee?
I actually, surprised I don't drink any coffee, but I would agree Starbucks is better. So.
Well, you can get the tea at Starbucks too. I don't know if you can at McDonald's. But all the coffee drinkers are like, oh yeah, Starbucks. Then you have the 10% contrarians who are like, no, McDonald's is better. And everyone's like, well, really? Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you being that way?
Yeah.
And then I share this results from this. I think it was like MIT or someone did this study. They blind taste tested people on Starbucks and McDonald's. And so everyone raises their hand that they'd prefer Starbucks coffee. But in a blind taste test, it's the inverse. 90% of people actually prefer the McDonald's coffee. And so the question is, like, well, why are people paying $2 more for a worse coffee that tastes worse? And it all comes down to like the experience, right? When you like walk into a Starbucks, it feels a certain way. It's always consistent. Like their cup, when you hold their cup in your hand, you feel different than if you're holding that McDonald's cup.
Yeah.
And it's like people want to pay more for good experiences. And, you know, if anyone ever watches Second Nature's videos of people like unboxing, it like feels like an unboxing experience watching someone like open the newest gadget on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
Like it's experiential, right? And that's what people walk away with. That's why they go give 5-star reviews to the property managers using you guys, right? Because it's the actual experience is better. And while they're paying more money, like very likely they'd be willing to pay twice as much, right?
Yeah. No, I think one thing I would add to that too is like, everyone knows you can't be everything to anyone, or or everything to everyone. You end up being nothing. And so, something I think about, just to follow that is like Amazon is such an easy example. Like Amazon is not the cheapest place to get almost anything. Now they're not expensive, right? I mean, they have good prices for sure, but almost any product on there, go find the product, top selling one. If you go Google it and you're willing to find like, some wholesaler or kind of manufacturer direct, some, e-com site that you probably feel might steal your credit card. There's something out there selling it for 10, 20% less, but, why do people buy on Amazon? It's like, 90% of the time you're probably gonna be fine there. But for that 10% where the product shows up damaged or it doesn't show up at all, you email, call, it's just not worth it. And so, I think, you nailed it, right? Like they've grown so well because they brought convenience and good service, but at an affordable price. And, big market, obviously some other folks do convenience and luxury. And so I think, when you look at the space, like, not everything is equal, right? Like there's great companies we know that's like, they said, hey, we're going to focus on either like luxury properties and do really premium service. And it's like, maybe we'll do this for their package where you've got folks that are like, hey, we're this market we're in, rents are lower, it's more people looking for functional properties. And so, we want to include these services and do that. So like, really knowing what you stand for, what you're going to do. But at the end of the day, great service, it's got to make sense. Just like, Amazon, great service at an affordable price, some other places you might get even, white glove service at a higher price, there's going to be different markets. And so I think that's important, really knowing what you stand for and kind of focusing there. And a lot of times when you hear that, people think about these things, or some of the, what people believe, like, hey, this may happen, it's a lot of times, they're applying half a strategy to half a strategy here. And it's kind of like, the boat's trying to row two directions and, not very effective. And so, I would say, you nailed it there with that Starbucks example. Service matters, kind of knowing what you stand for is important. And no, absolutely. I think that makes sense.
Actually, I'll riff off the Amazon example a bit here because Jeff Bezos has a quote that I always use, which is the best way to build a service is to work backwards from the things that will never change about what your customer wants. And so for, us buying things off Amazon, we're always going to want vast selection. We're always going to want the fastest delivery, and we're always going to want the best price on that product. And that's sort of what they try and optimize around. Where they get most values actually in the vast selection and fast delivery.
Yep.
And that's why we're willing to pay like a monthly subscription just to buy stuff from them, right? No one's ever going to say, oh, I wish that got delivered slower to me.
Yeah.
And if you think, right, but if you think about the resident, like, let's take the overlap of like pricing, it's sort of like a false equivalent in rental markets because the cheaper the home, I associate in my head a less comfortable living experience by default. So what actually I care about is I want to live in the home that's going to be the most comfortable, usually most convenient. I don't want like a 4-hour commute. I want to easily commute. I want it to be easy to live there. When I need something done, I want it to be easy to get that thing done. Like I want it to be easy to talk to my manager when I need them. I want it to be comfortable. I want the systems to work, right? I don't want my HVAC to be going out like every month. I don't want the air quality to suck in the house because like their filters aren't being replaced. Those two are going to by far be the most important things. And those are never going to change. No one's ever going to move into a home and be like, oh, I wish it was like a pain in the butt to put in a maintenance request. I wish I had to be on hold half an hour with like a call center before I could. Like that's never going to happen. And your product is obviously driving on that comfort. and the convenience too, because you're actually automatically shipping these things. They don't have to now go to the hardware store to get a filter. You're doing it for them. You know, you're making it convenient for them to get like, you know, their deposit back, because they're not going to pull out like a filthy filter anymore.
Yeah. Well, I love it. And one thing, like, you know, speaking of Prime, you know, a lot of great products, obviously, you know, one of the tests is, hey, if you took this away, are people going to care or just move on with their life? And so, you know, something I would challenge someone, you know, to do is like, you know, sit down with, you know, let's say it's a prospective renter, you know, someone who's been renting for a while, who's gotten used to this great service, you know, of, you know, again, 24/7 maintenance, you know, high quality vetted vendors. Anytime they have a question, someone professional who's done this hundreds of times, being able to help them out. Just, you know, even things like, you know, self showings and a lot of the innovation, like convenience coming to market. It's like, you know, compare that experience and say, you know, well, you know, call it $30 a month. Say, hey, you know, if we lowered your rent $30 a month, but we took all that away, you know, and compare that to experience, you know, what do you think people would actually say? And I think you'll find, you know, more often than not, people will say, whoa, hold on, you know, and I think, you know, as I think about the future of kind of like property management, you know, there's a, you know, I know one of the discussions we had on a recent, you know, conference event we held virtually was, you know, it's really like, you know, how do you, you know, make, you know, if convenience is the driver, how do you get to a point where someone could literally, you know, view a property online? If they like it, they go through, sign a lease, they get their keys, they move in, you know, effectively contactless, don't touch anyone, you know, do it an hour a night online. Like if that's the BHAG, you know, we're headed to, you know, and like, you know, what other thing that goes around making that experience better. And so, you know, I definitely think there's some exciting innovation coming down the pipeline, but, you know, I think, you know, I think you make, you know, great points though around, you know, what are these services, you know, when you think about Prime, for example, you know, I know if someone tried to cancel Prime today or like got rid of Amazon, you know, it would add frustration to me. You know, there's things all the time where it's like, all right, if I need something, you know, I don't go there for good brands or good, you know, there's a lot of things I don't go to Amazon for, but if it's something just functional, boom, 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 get it sent to me. You know, it's super easy, and you know, I'd feel pain for that. And so that's, you know, I'd make the same argument as I know I'd never trade all those things, you know, even save $100 a month. If I went back to moving into a house that's not clean, you know, there's issues with the home, and all I get is a cell phone that gets a 5-day reply time. Yeah. So that's, but yeah, no, anyways, great topics for sure. And a lot of interesting things to think about there. So.
Maybe we can like take a few steps back, because I actually have this early in my notes to ask, and we're now like halfway through, and I haven't even asked this yet. So I think second nature and everything you're doing around your product and the benefit packages you're helping property managers build is I think probably because of the force you guys have put behind it, it is now becoming a significant trend in the space. And in large part, I think that's because of the work you guys are doing. And so I'm curious, like maybe you can take us back to the beginnings of that, and let's bring it all the way back to actually how you even started the company, because I'd like to hear that story, and then we can like work up into when this benefit package became such like a dominant piece of the management space.
Yeah, absolutely. So rewind, I think it's 2012 is actually when we started the business. So crazy to think it's almost been a decade, but my co-founder and I we were attending NC State University. We met at school. We were actually running the collegiate entrepreneurship organization together. And as part of that, you know, they bring in investors, or I guess we run a club. This is kind of our job. Like we'd bring in investors, entrepreneurs, you know, people, you know, that work at these kind of startup companies, and they would just talk to the students, kind of share their learnings, and it really piqued our interest. And you know, we're kind of, you know, obviously in school, like, you know, the general path is get your degree, get a job, kind of learn and grow. And so, you know, we started to hear these different stories, and it really piqued our interest. And you know, prior to that, I started selling Cutco actually at 18. And what was, you know, fun about that is, I don't know, something clicked one day. I'm just out there, and you know, I'd go in a house, I'd do my presentation, and you know, someone buys something, and I'm just like, you know, like, I don't know, I guess all the jobs I worked in high school as like a lifeguard, you know, restaurant here and there, like, I guess this hadn't clicked, but you know, what happened was, like, you know, like, okay, I want to get this at $1,200. They give me the credit card, and you know, let's say your commission on that's like, you know, $200. I'm just like, wait, if I hadn't done anything, this person wouldn't have this, something like all I did, like I created economic value. Like I went in, I met them, I gave them something valuable they wanted, they paid for it, and I got a cut. And I ended up, doing that for years and running an office and learned a lot of great things doing that. But like just this thing that I haven't like clicked my brain, like yeah, you can just like sell something to people and like, that's a business. Like it's not that confusing. And so, when we were going through this, all sorts of ideas, we were working on things. And, one day my co-founder basically was talking about air filters. And, we started going into like this whole subscription model, this, that, and the other. And I think it was like a week later, my mother calls me and she's like, hey, how are you doing? I'm like, yeah, doing great, blah, blah, blah. How are you? And she goes, well, I just had to pay 10 grand to replace my HVAC. And I'm thinking, I knew like when I was younger, it got replaced. That the house that she lived in, I think we moved in was a couple of years old. And so like, I think it was a new construction. So it was like her third HVAC. And at the time I'm like 20. So I'm like, yeah, these things last longer. I'm like, what happened? She goes, the guy said I hadn't changed the filter in a few years. And I was like, you'll never believe this. We were just talking about filters like a whole week, like for a week, we had like this concept. And so it's like that plus a couple other things. We started talking to like everybody we knew, professors, and like, we just kept hearing the same thing. It's like, I never remember to do it. And, if you can get me a good quality, good price, and it's convenient, just shows up, why would I not do it? And so that kind of gives the confidence to say, hey, there's something here. We actually ended up, we put about 8,000 of our own money into, doing this, got to the point where we were working like 23 hours a day, like sleeping on a couch in this like innovation center in NC State. We actually stopped going to school for like 2 weeks and we're like, maybe we should go to class. We were trying to figure that out. And then ended up getting into an accelerator, which we didn't even know what those were. We were volunteering at an event and met this guy and he's like, yeah, we give you some money, some office space, some mentorship. We're like, that's insane. Great. Sign me up. So we ended up going down to this thing. We ended up actually dropping out of school, in March of 2013 to just work on this full time. Went down, launched the business, and ended up moving. We're back in Raleigh now, but moved back to Raleigh, where we're from, just to scale it up, good market to hire and grow the business. Not sure what that means anymore. We'll see where everything goes with virtual, but came back to Raleigh and long story short, launched the business. Originally, the core focus, we just launched direct to consumers online, with the whole idea of sign up, get your filters on a regular basis. And then naturally, fast forward to 2020, the business evolved and, we obviously, as predominant space plan, property management, everything from single family, multifamily, commercial. I'm
just curious, when you went into property management from direct to consumer, at this point, were you still just out of the accelerator, or as you scale the business, were you actually bringing in more money to make sure you could keep growing?
Yeah, great question. So it was actually, about a little over 5 years ago, and I guess a little bit of a blurred timeline because, it's one of those things like, even back in 2012, it's like, well, all right, we have a concept, how are we going to sell it? We're like, well, HVAC companies will probably want to partner with us, utility companies and all sorts of things we've done now. We're in a lot of verticals, but, speak specifically about the one, we're here to talk about today. It's kind of like, well, we know there's a lot of houses. We know they need to be changed. Something I guess we probably didn't do and know is like tenants are much worse, at changing filters than your owner. It's actually a bigger variance in a little bit of a different problem to solve here. But ultimately, that was something where, the consumer business is growing really fast. People absolutely love the product. We're seeing really good, metrics. Like people are retaining well, great reviews. And, we actually just had folks come to us, our own property manager said, hey, I saw your business, like absolutely love it. I've signed up for my own home. Could we work out like, can we get a bulk pricing? Can we do this? And we said, absolutely. Of course,
that's awesome.
The more and more we got into it, that's when we started to realize like, wow, like we can make a huge impact here, right? This isn't just saying, we're not just swapping out vendor A for vendor B, vendor A being like them doing it themselves and us replacing. Like, no, like it's actually not getting done. So we're actually like, we're solving a problem right now in terms of actually just getting them changed out. Similar to the consumer that may only change it once or twice a year. We're taking that up to 4 to 12 times depending on their market. But it's actually a bigger gap, and so that's how we got into it. Is actually PMs calling us, and then I'd say from there, obviously, as it's grown and stuff, we've got more involved. So,
at what point do you think this kind of shift happened, or maybe it was immediately, where you started helping managers create their benefit packages? Was that more recent?
Yeah, so really that dates back a couple of years. I wouldn't say it was immediate, right? So when I think back to when we started, in the space, it was very much, hey, we've got this offering, and at the time, we had some partnership with the utility companies, for a variety of different industries where we were either kind of, people were offering our service, or we were kind of doing more, like we would do in the property space, working directly with someone to kind of insert into their operation. And so, we worked through various ways to implement it, and started to come to realize, one thing, which is, and I think I said this earlier, property managers, they're just so busy. They have a lot going on. And so something, that we realized, like, well, hey, where can we add the most value? And so a lot of folks, we go to them to implement, and they say, yeah, absolutely love it. I want to do it, busy, I'll get to it next quarter, this quarter, and said, hey, what can we do to ramp that up? So that was part of it. And then the other one was just this realization that, like, wow, you guys you're so much better than running something off Craigslist. And I just use that as an example, but like, you had a lot of value here. How do we market it? How do we bring it to the forefront? Because it benefits the industry. It as a potential renter, like, the subconscious thing that's out there is like, if I go talk to you and you're like, hey, here's your keys, here's your lease. All right, cool. But if you're like, hey, by the way, here's all the value you get. Here's the thing. Like, I'm like, well, if you're thinking about this now, when I have something wrong in 6 months, how are you going to behave then? And I think it's this constant thing, like any partnership, any new friendship, whatever it may be. It's like, there's early signs like, well, if you treat me like this when we're just meeting, how are you going to treat me when something goes wrong, right? And so I think it kind of plays that same effect. And so we said, hey, we really have an opportunity to partner with folks and say, hey, let's better market this. Let's do it. And by the way, some of that back end kind of work, like, we'll just do it for you, right? Like, we'll really, get an expertise here, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? And so that's really kind of how it developed to where, 2-3 years ago is where it became more of a focus. And, as you see now, that's really kind of something, that, we're pushing and kind of a focus for us is, because we think it's going to have such a big impact. 10 years from now, we believe that it will be the standard and really what people will look for. That's what they'll want in the market. And part of that whole, why do you rent from a professional? This is one of the core factors. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think when I think about like third party, especially third party property managers or fee managers, I think one of the biggest problems that often goes like unaddressed for them is the opportunities for creating more margin, because it's so hard to run a very profitable business when the only avenue is that management fee. There's just so much cost that goes into, running the home. And I think for a lot of fee managers, they're looking at these resident benefit programs as the avenue to actually enhance the profitability of the company so that they can start investing back into like growth. And I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, because this conversation comes up a lot. A lot of folks kind of look at it as, okay, do I focus on growing my door count? Right? Do I acquire more customers, grow my door count to be a better business? Or do I look at how do I generate more revenue per unit to be a better business? So I'm curious, especially like as a funded company that thinks a lot about scaling, how do you think about those two things for property managers? Is there any like advice or anything like that you'd give them around thinking about these two things?
Yeah, so, if I were in the their shoes, I think the first thing, I really want to nail down is like, well, what do I want to be, in the future? Am I like, why am I doing this? Do I want to build a large business? And if I do, why? At the end of the day, and as like building a company is tough. Like, if you're in it just because you're chasing money, this, that, and the other, that's not going to give you the energy to go day in and day out. So like, if you truly are passionate about working with teams, building, growing, innovating, that's what you want to do, that could be a great path. And the flip side of it's, I actually want a really good lifestyle business. I only want a few employees, I don't want that many potential problems. Like answering that question first, and then I think that'll be a good guide, And so, and we have a ton of partners we work with that, they may have, 100, 200 units, and they're making more profit as a company and, arguably maybe a better lifestyle than people with 600 or 700 units. Now, that person with 607, not saying they may not, lap them at some point and once they start to focus down and scale, but, I think it's definitely starting with, what's that why? And having those, those kind of really tough, critical thought internally. And kind of once you land there, I think it really makes it a lot easier to follow that blueprint. And one thing I'd say, network, talk to people. You know, the amount of folks I know personal, really good friends that I've met through the industry that say like, get in mastermind groups, find other people that are like-minded and work together. You know, it's what I love about this industry is collaborative. You know, obviously there's tens of thousands of companies in the space. And so like, find people that have common goals and, learn from each other, help each other out. And I think like, if I were to say one thing, I think that's one of the biggest things because, like a lot of things in life, like most of these problems have been solved, right? There's a best practice. And so that's kind of what I would say be first. So if we had 7 hours, maybe some others, but
I'm curious, like when you started Second Nature, which formerly was Filter Easy, did you know you wanted to be a big scaled company, venture back, big valuations versus, lifestyle business, or did you sort of find your way into that path?
So, I would say this isn't entirely true because again, doing that club, I knew it. Somebody's like, I didn't know what internet was. Like when we looking back, I laugh at it, but like, this event talking about the accelerator to kind of paint a picture here. I think I was doing name tags and my co-founder was hanging coats or something like that. Like it was some venture conference. We're volunteering. Person in the lobby is like, hey, I got an NC State, all hype, it's like, he's like, nice to meet you guys. What do you guys do? And we're like, yeah, like we actually have a business we're working on. And we already put some money on it. We were pretty serious about it. But in our head, like, we were like, yeah, like we're going to go get some products. We're going to go sell them to people, make money. And like, I don't know. I think at the time in college, if we could have got to making like $25,000 a year, we would have called that success. Like, what I mean? Like, it was, probably not that low, but you know what I mean? Like it was just like, yeah, we're just going to go do this, right? I wouldn't say we thought that hard.
Yeah. Paying your rent and tuition was enough.
Yeah.
In the beginning,
the knives make pretty good money. If I can do that better and kind of, there's opportunity for growth, that's exciting. And so, this person's like, yeah, like, they walk this whole investment thing. I'm just like, that's insane. Like, why would you do that? Like, that sounds like, now looking back, I'm like, obviously that's a great business model. Sellers have done very well. And so like, once you learn something, it becomes obvious. And so actually at the time, didn't know really anything at all, and so, my personality, my co-founders, naturally, it's very much like, very kind of hard charging, always trying to, what can we do more, pushing ourselves. But one thing I do know is like, we for sure built out models and had goals and things like that. And, one thing I was like, by the, but sometimes when there's that goal out there, it's like, there's some unknowns in there. And like at the critical milestones are things like, hey, once we figure this out, and once we figure this out, like these things you have to do to get there. And what I've kind of often found is like, in your head, you're like, once I reach that goal, I'll be so happy or fulfilled or whatever. And like, but usually before you actually reach the goal, you either know you will or won't long before. It's like, well, I hit this milestone. So it's like, all right, well, now I'm gonna hit it. It's just time or this. And like, but by the time you get there, it's like, the goalpost moves. It's almost like a dog chasing its tail, right? And so, like, if you had asked us, like, hey, told us, hey, you're gonna be this big in, whatever 8 years, I would have said, that sounds, I don't, not that I don't believe you, like, that sounds incredible. But now you get here, and I'm like, I feel small, like, hey, we're just getting started, and so my guess is, I think, you have to look at companies like, Amazon probably, and it's like, why did Jeff Bezos wake up every morning and keep doing what he's doing? It's obviously not for, as much resources they want to have. They're just passionate. To them, it's fun. And so I think that's my guess is that goalpost keeps moving. You never catch it, and so I really think taking that time to find like
chasing the goalpost is fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but no, that was kind of our experience. Just kind of figured out as we go, and so. But definitely a lot more clarity now with the experience we have and kind of mentors and folks we've worked with. I think we started. And sometimes that's helpful. I saw something the other day, like if you look at some of these major innovations and categories, the people that did them, they weren't the industry experts. They didn't come for it because sometimes you get so conditioned to thinking like with constraints, and like, well, we did this one project 7 years ago. We tested that. And like, you look at why it won't work or like, where sometimes these major, improvements are things where people like try and anyone in the industry laughs at it. That will never work. People don't care. And for sure will, they crack the code. So,
yeah. So It's interesting that, like, I actually want to dig into this more, because I think the interesting part is we all get in that mentality, and there's a risk for you. There's a risk for me that as, second nature becomes like the standard, the thing people do. As natural becomes the thing people do, you get into this mindset that's like, hey, this is what people do. And you stop thinking about innovating. And Amazon's done an amazing job at never falling into that. Like Jeff Bezos talks about this day one mentality. It's like every day's day one. You come in like it's like you're starting fresh. And so, obviously we need to keep that mentality for our businesses. And there are a lot of property managers that I talk to, and the early trendsetters on the benefit packages, I think, have that day one mentality. What is the next thing that's going to drive this industry forward? A lot of folks, though, and we shouldn't be excluded from this, because I'm sure it happens. I know it happens for me in smaller components of the business where I'm like, why didn't we think of that like freaking 6 months ago? Like, how are we so blind? And I noticed for property managers, like same as for me, just like me, we can get into this mindset where we're so fixated on how things are currently done that we've put a box around like how we can think about improving. And I'm wondering if you have, like, because you're kind of leading this edge now on benefit packages, I'm sure you guys run into this all the time where it's like, really, a benefit package? Like, I'm going to charge tenants for this? Like, that really, is that a thing? What would you say to someone listening that feels like they're a little bit stuck in the confines of kind of tradition, to sort of break through that and kind of expand the mindset and say, well, how can I think differently about improving my business?
Yeah. So one thing I'll start, I'm going to use 2020. So, I don't have to tell everyone all the negatives of the year. Those are clear, and it's definitely been, you can find a lot of reasons, that to be upset or complain, and sometimes, obviously that's life. But if you think about one thing that's coming out of this is, the advancement in technology, we just pulled forward. I don't know. I mean, I've read things 10, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever. Like, we just forced innovation on a lot of people. And across the board, people are like, it's not that bad. Like, this actually works great. And so, things like, corporate travel, it's like, how many people just like, oh, you got to meet in person. You can't do this, right? And like, and there, sometimes it's a chicken egg problem. It's like, well, because nobody wants to try this, you're not innovating, you're not making better. But it's like everyone went to Zoom, or virtual meetings. Like, all the businesses and innovation around making virtual meetings better now. There's times where like we've had internal meetings where I'm like, I would never want to have this in person again, just because like simple things like swapping out screen shares, like the focus, the note, like there's things that are just like, it actually works better. Like, even if we're sitting in the same building, I'd rather dial in, right? And so like, an example I'll give that will hit home to this space is like self-showings. Now obviously, there's people that didn't think this way, but a lot of people out here like, oh, I'll never do self-showings. And when you think about innovation and really moving forward, you got to think of like, all right, if it works, what's the big win? And I think put that carrot way out there. And then it's like, all right, I know I could come up with a million reasons things aren't going to work, but why would it work? And if I want that prize at the end of the tunnel, how do I keep driving to get there? And so I think about self-showings as an easy one. It's like the amount of people you could go on Facebook and go wherever, industry events, like there's people out there saying it'll never work, this and that. They're like, yeah, what if someone breaks the house and does this? But it's like, sure, and that will happen. But in aggregate, a lot of people got forced into self-showings, and like they're like people that were just like, foot down, I'll never do it. Just tried it and like, okay, I was wrong. It works. And so like, I think about it in every aspect. It's like, how do you train yourself to start thinking like, it's so easy to point out what won't work, what will work, and why. And look, there's going to be challenges, but I know something people love is like, I think, when you look at like, self-driving cars and stuff like that, it's like, at some point, I don't know, 2100, year 3000, whatever. It's like, I think everyone at this point believes like, yeah, we'll get there. But there's still people out there saying like, wow, hey, you can hack it. And I'm like, that's great. But if you look at today, like, and I'm not an expert in these numbers, but the death toll, like, you're gonna have someone. There's gonna be a news story. It got hacked. They have no control. Died. Absolutely, and that sucks. And maybe it's gonna be me. Hopefully not. But like on aggregate, if you look at the data, it's gonna be far safer. And so it's like the same thing with this. It's like just because 1 in 10,000 people break into your home and wreck it and squat, on aggregate, it's going to be much better. And so I think people always try and find like, what's that exception of the rule? It's not the norm. It's not what's going to happen. And they just kind of put their foot down and don't want to innovate and don't think. And the sad thing about that is, for those people, it's like, a lot of people I know, they're great people. I want to see them succeed. And it's like, but when you start thinking like that, that's when you get lapped and, other people start to innovate in front of you. And so, that's what I would challenge people is like, how can you versus how can't you, I think is a good mindset.
Yeah, I think a lot of that can come from fear too. And I'll put it in the words of Dune, because I just saw the new trailer for Dune, but fear is the mind killer. And a lot of times fear is going to stop people from doing the right thing just because there's a little bit of unknown. But I think, there's, like you're saying, there's ways that like you look at it, you analyze it, like a lot of the fear we sometimes feel, it really is irrational. When COVID hit at Latchel, we started doing telemaintenance. So we used to do troubleshooting over a phone call, and what we built was a way to just do it via video. And there's no like necessarily fear here, but a lot of folks, property managers, were saying, well, I don't think anyone's going to jump on video with you. No one's going to want to do that. And like the reality is the opposite's true. Most people would prefer to get on video so they can actually show you, here's what I'm looking at. And as long as you have a way where they don't have to like download something, as long as they can get in through their mobile browser, you're good.
That's a feature. I right now, like if I was renting and something went wrong, do I want to put in a maintenance request, wait 2 days, have someone come out and like flip a
reset a GFI? That's good.
People do this, like define like what virtual maintenance is, but like people have already been troubleshooting. It's like take it a step further, video, like get the tech on the phone. It's like I mean, obviously there's gonna be something where like if I'm gonna start pulling things out and doing stuff complicated, I don't want to do that, but it's like it's more convenient for me to spend 10 minutes on the phone and do the work than spend 40 minutes watching you walk around the house and taking time off work and screwing around and not having something work for 2 days. So like, I think, and it's one of those things like, again, it's like, just try it. Like, hey, you may be right. If you're right, great. What did it hurt to try it? And I think that's what we're finding again is like, I
most of these things, they're two-way doors. If you go into the door and you made the bad choice, you just walk back out, right?
I really do think like virtual maintenance, one of those things, like I think in 10 years, it's gonna be like, it may have been 30, 40 years before that became the commonplace. I think in 10 years out, that would be a huge component of better convenience, lowering costs. Like you think about what are things that win for all stakeholders? That's one, right? And so, and this is that kind of event that like forced, not everybody did. A lot of people just said, well, no maintenance. But, there were some people on the fence who said, all right, I'll give it a try now. And I think, again, there's challenges with it. There's ways to improve. But, I know you guys are finding good results with it. So I love it.
So we're coming up on time here, but we've covered so much. So like, with looking back at everything we've talked about, you might say, I can't even think of anything, but I want to give you the chance. Is there anything that you would like want to leave folks listening with? Anything we didn't talk about that you think is important, or just advice for folks as they kind of move forward in this new normal?
We covered a lot of good stuff. So rather than confuse or clog even more with too much, I love that focus of like, we were talking about innovation in doing things new, like be open, try, how can you versus how can't you? And while it's a little scary, I'll leave it with this. I remember someone once told me, they're like, I think it might even be one of these like famous motivational speakers, TED Talk, I can't remember it. They said like, whenever something makes you nervous, just immediately commit to it. Someone says, hey, do you want to like speak at a conference or, do this thing, this and that? Rather than stress about it, this, that, and the other, just say yes. Put it on your calendar. The day will come. No matter how ready you are, you'll get up there and do it. And afterwards, you'll feel a heck of a lot better. You'll be better at it. And no one's going to be, everyone in the audience, let's say was speaking, I think that was the example they gave that a lot of people are afraid of. No one's going to remember if it went bad, but you'll get better. It's like, just try it. Just give it a try. How can you? Positivity. And most importantly, have fun. So that's my...
Right on. Love it. Well, cool. Thanks so much for being here, Thad. And like, I want to give people a chance to learn more about you or learn more about Second Nature. Where should folks go?
Yeah, so I mean, if you wanted to reach out to me directly, you can find me on LinkedIn. Thad at Second Nature is my email. If you wanted to check us out, you can actually go to residentbenefitpackage.com and reach us through there. And I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
Beautiful. So that's just residentbenefitpackage.com.
Correct.
All right, cool. Well, Thad, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for giving out your personal email. You might need to hire some extra executive assistants now to scrub those. But as Thad graciously offered, just Thad at secondnature.com. Send him all your questions. Let's inundate his inbox. Super appreciate it, Thad. Thanks for being here. And for everyone joining, thanks for tuning in. If you're interested in more topics on property management growth, you can also head to propertybrew.co. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter. It's totally free. We focus on industry innovations, growth tactics. We actually did a little spot before the PM Leadership Exchange conference too about that. But yeah, head over to propertybrew.co. Keep updated on all the new innovations. And to stay updated on the Latchel podcast, you can follow our Crowdcast channel at crowdcast.io/Latchel or on Facebook at facebook.com/Latchel. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And make sure to check back in 2 weeks. We have a session with Mark Cunningham where we're going to be diving into some of the details on his profitability course, which has been updated for 2020. So be really interesting to see what he has to say. He goes through about 25 different income streams that property managers can utilize. Thad, thanks again so much, and goodbye, everyone. Have a great week.